Good morning once again from Carmarthen railway station, and those of you who watched my GWR Pullman dining video will know that I received complimentary first class anytime returns because we got stuck on the Night Riviera sleeper last year for 4 hours in the middle of nowhere, and that was sort of their compensation for that. And we used them to get out here on the Pullman service, and we're going back to London Paddington today on the 9:20, which is in normal first class, but I thought it'd be interesting to see what it's like, see what the offering is, and obviously at the end I'll be rating them on comfort, catering and value for money, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to hop on board. We've got about 15 minutes, we can find an unreserved seat, and we'll just see how this journey goes on this beautiful day. Today we'd be travelling on one of 6 direct services from Carmarthen to the capital, operated by GWR, and their bi-mode IETs usually formed of 5 carriages. And travelling in first class, we boarded the rear section of the train, which contains seating laid out in its standard 2+1 configuration, featuring a mix of tables of 2 and 4, as well as solo seats. As we were travelling on our anytime return tickets, we didn't actually have a seat reservation for the 0921 service, but were luckily able to still grab an unreserved table of 2 in Coach K. In terms of the seat itself, let's have a quick look around before we get underway. Now, I'm aware that these seats on the Class 800 family of trains do receive a lot of criticism, but in my opinion, I don't actually find them too bad, featuring a decent level of recline, guaranteed plug sockets at every seat, adjustable armrests, a window blind, and storage spaces for luggage at the end of the carriage and overhead. With departure from Carmarthen bang on time, let's have a quick glance at today's route into the capital. The journey from Carmarthen takes us from one of GWR's far outposts in West Wales right into the heart of their operations from the grand terminus at London Paddington. Along the way we make stops at key cities in southern Wales such as Swansea, Cardiff and Newport before heading under the Severn Estuary into England. With further calls at Bristol Parkway, Swindon and Reading, we speed into the capital, giving us a total journey time of 3 hours and 49 minutes to cover the 221-mile route. And with such beautiful weather for today's journey, we sat back to soak up the stunning views. With arrival into Swansea, our train has a 15-minute stopover where 2 5-car sets join to form one 10-car service into London, and the catering trolleys are loaded, before departure at around about 10:20. As we leave Wales's second largest city, we pass Landor TMD, opened in 1932 by the GWR and subsequently used for stabling of HSTs, and since 2019 the overhaul and maintenance of Transport for Wales's older DMU fleet. Shortly after departure from Port Talbot, the first round of catering began with a selection of hot and cold drinks, various sweet and savoury snacks, and a choice of different sandwiches. Whilst perfectly adequate for us, I couldn't help feeling that this was a somewhat lacklustre offer in comparison to other key mainline operators such as LNER and Avanti, both of whom provide hot meals in proper crockery on most of their services. But more of that later on in the final scores. Approaching the Welsh capital, everything seemed to be going well. However, upon reaching the platforms, we were informed of a signal failure in the Bristol area, being held for 15 minutes before being allowed to proceed to our next station of Newport. Departure from Cardiff Central also brought with it another round of hot and cold drinks, served by the excellent onboard team. Leaving Bristol Parkway, it seemed like we had left most of the disruption behind us. However, we soon encountered yet another signal failure, being stuck for over an hour and unable to move forwards. At this point, it's worth mentioning that the staff on board were absolutely amazing, keeping everyone well informed, as well as continuing to serve us all drinks and snacks. Eventually, the driver was given permission to go forwards, arriving into the railway town of Swindon nearly 1.5 hours late. Terminating at Reading due to platform availability at Paddington. So we're going to have to jump off, find another train going into Paddington, and we have got an onwards connection home that unfortunately we're going to miss. So I'm not sure what's going to end up happening, but the service so far has been really good. Everyone's been really helpful, the staff have been excellent. So we're just going to have to see what happens when we reach Reading. Upon reaching Reading, we were able to jump onto another service from Bristol, which took us onwards for the final 25-minute stretch into Paddington, concluding a very delayed and slightly chaotic journey. Well, we eventually made it to London Paddington, albeit about an hour and a half late. As you will have seen, we managed to hop on that train from Bristol Temple Meads in Reading to take us to Paddington, and we even got some catering on board, which was a bonus. As you can see now, I'm in Leicester, very sunny today, and that's because we had an EMR service which we needed to get at St Pancras. We missed our original one, so we just dashed over and we managed to get the one an hour later. So it worked out okay in the end, and we've just got one more thing to do, which is the final scores. So I will see you in a minute back in Stamford after the final verdict on GWR First Class. So to begin with, let's have a look at the comfort, which I gave a 7 out of 10. As discussed earlier, I found the seats perfectly fine for the entirety of the journey to London, and while certainly not up to the standard of the old predecessors, they are definitely an upgrade on the poor quality standard class seating. Moving on to catering, which we both agreed was a 6.5 out of 10. Like cross country, for a long distance intercity service, GWR is simply not up to the standard of other operators. And whilst nice to have some snacks and sandwiches, it would be better to have a selection of hot meals considering the length of their routes. And finally, value for money. As we were using complimentary tickets, prices here are shown for an advanced single on the same train we travelled on with a railcard discount. At an upgrade cost of £28, it's certainly not the best value for money considering the level of catering, but it does offer a much greater level of comfort compared to standard class, which is why we scored it 6 out of 10, giving GWR a total of 19.5 out of 30. Definitely some room for improvement. Successfully back at Stamford now, and with the final scores in, that concludes today's slightly interesting and interrupted video. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more adventures across the UK rail network.